Hi everyone. I'm Rachel, and this is a digital recording of my talk called "Watering Your Creative Plants: Learnings from My Journey into 3D Animation." Cool. So, hello again. I'm Rachel, and I like to say I make squishy 3D art. So, what does that look like? It looks like cats, apparently. um, there was a week where Instagram thought I was a cat owner, and it just sent me a lot of like cat food, cat toy ads, but some of them looked really cute. So, made a few animations. And more recently, I've been working on a series called Catbirb. And it just follows kind of like local, kind of like everyday moments in my life that I find very fun. So some of you may recognize this nearby BART station. Awesome. So what does this talk about? Um, I guess I am leaning really heavily into this plant metaphor, and so talk about this in three parts. First, finding my sprout, how I stumbled onto 3D, and then how I establish a regular creative process for it, like water and sunshine. And finally, now that my plant has grown more, what is it like in the wild? I recently started freelancing full time and dabbling in NFTs. Oh boy, awesome. So, my path to 3D animation was unfortunately not as straightforward as this. And in fact, it looked more like this. So for a few years after college, I think I was just, you know, uh, being a crafty person and like learned across different types of mediums and materials, from bamboo fish basket weaving to 2D illustration to felting. Um, and at the time, I think I felt a little frustrated that none of these were like going anywhere. But looking back now, all of it really became helpful when I started learning 3D modeling. So I started learning Blender a year and a half ago, but that's not truly accurate because a lot of the skills from here, for the years that I did worked on these projects, from color to composition to just like understanding how I wanted to bring an idea or a feeling and like express it, um, um, all came into handy from here. Cool. So another perk of working on these crafty projects were meeting wonderful crafty friends, who sometimes sent me funny videos like this Blender tutorial. So this was the first time I had seen the inside of Blender, and I thought it'd be funny if I shared this with you all. It's a 1 minute video about moths.
Model a moth in a wings down position. Moths are pure chaos, so don't stress too much. Add a base key and a new shake key and put the wings up. Add a keyframe to that shake key and a noise modifier in the graph editor to make the wings just go nuts. Duplicate the moth, offset the noise modifier, and again, exactly 6 times. No, I don't care. Make the moths a new collection. Moths! Make an emitter object and give it a particle system. Have all the moths start on the first frame with a good lifetime. Have it render as a collection. Moths! For physics, select voids. Oh yes! Turn the mass way down. Look at that. But can we teach them to love? Make a lamp. In the Boyd brain, create only one rule. Follow the leader. Their leader is and shall always be lamp. Tweak a couple settings. It's unavoidable. Mostly mass, max speed, angular velocity, personal space. Oh yeah, it's a pain, but no one gets the moth wrangling for the adrenaline. Hey, check it out. They like the lamp. Now that you have this, put them anywhere. You can make a lazy scene and add mobs, and people will be like, wow, you even added mobs. And you'll be like, yeah, I did, and I taught them to love. Mobs add realism to anything.
Cool. So who's ready to make some moths? Um, After that, I signed up for a low poly class with a friend, and the rest is history. The age old tale of me, my hobbies, and my full time job. Cool. So, on to nurturing my plant. I made a first few renders, and I was definitely proud of myself. But there's a part of me that was like, man, I see so much good 3D art out there, and there's such a large difference between what I'm making and what I can tell is really good. And during times like this, I like to remember one of my favorite quotes by Ira Glass. And I'll leave it here, but to paraphrase, um, it's normal to have this gap between your taste and your work. And this taste is like kind of like the reason we get into creative work in the first place. And to work through this, we really just have to put in the time, put in the work, and it's a normal process. So I wanted to put this to practice and kind of set aside like a weekly structure to help me do this. I would mood board after work, or like on weekdays, just like find inspiration, think about what I wanted to make. And then on the weekends, I would block off time to dive into Blender, maybe learn a tutorial, make a project. And this last step is probably the most important. I would check my enthusiasm because it's a hobby. So I was like, okay, girl, it should be fun. um, I would ask myself, like, hey, am I getting bored? Do I feel like I'm just doing this every week to check a box? Or is this still exciting to me? Am I still learning? And sometimes, do I just need to skip this week to catch up on life? And a few months pass. I start, I don't know, really starting to find my style. But part of me is like, ooh, it would be really fun to animate. So, to walk you through my first animation. Um, and because it's the pandemic, obviously I am obsessed with Animal Crossing, and I decide I want to make Lily. Um, I definitely did not know this, like, go through this process by myself. I followed a tutorial, which is one of the reasons I really like Blender and the 3D community. So many wonderful people have taken the time to create great content and share it. So to start off, we have a sketch or drawing of kind of like blueprint of the front view and the side view. It later gets kind of turned into a model. You can use that front view, side view, adjust the loops, the edges. You can UV map, which I actually avoid in my most of my personal work, but it was cool to learn how this works, and find some funny memes for it. This is kind of when you paint a texture and kind of like shape it and put it on your 3D object. Yes. And at this point, I uh, still felt more comfortable making drawing in 2D than in 3D. I mean, I guess I still do. Um, and one thing that helped my process was to take a render whenever I was stuck, send it to my iPad, doodle on it in Procreate with any ideas, and then kind of like make it back in 3D once I had one I liked. So finally, the fun part of rigging and animating this cute dance, um, and also finding lovely memes on Twitter about rigs. Cool. So 1 year passes. I grow my style, learn new techniques, and I'm starting to think about um, freelancing full time after doing a few commissions in the wild. Cool. So before I decided to freelance full time, I asked myself a few questions. One, am I running away from something or running towards something else? This is a good question, probably for any big life decision. And I've known in the past, I had kind of used my creative outlet as like an escape to not make changes that I could make in my work life that would make me happier. But I was like, no, like I feel like I'm running towards something, works pretty good, but this is something I'm really excited to try. Second, I asked myself if I had a support network in place, because freelancing is a pretty kind of like individual, kind of like pursuit, and I wanted to make sure that I had people to celebrate with, commiserate with, ask for advice, um, kind of just have a community. And last, I asked myself if there are actually opportunities. A pretty good question. And I was like, yeah, like I had found a contracting job, or a contract job as a 3D designer at a chocolate company. And I kept getting these Instagram messages asking about NFT projects. I didn't really know much about them, but I was like, okay, that's cool. And I wish I could give great freelance advice, but for now, I luckily have found many great, I guess, like artists and creators who have made guides and videos on this. I'll link them here, from how do you price to just things to look out for to just an overview. And one thing I've heard a few freelancers tell me was that, the first year, expect to lose money. Like, expect to find your groove, go through growing pains, figure out your process. In year two, expect to just like kind of like hit your stride, break even, start feeling good about things. And in your third year, that's when things will really start to like, you know, pick up, and, you know, happiness up and to the right, um, which is really reassuring because I'm definitely in year one. But besides, despite all of the advice and despite all of the wonderful guides, part of me still felt really lost. I had turned my hobby into a full time job, and I was like, wasn't this the dream? And at the same time, I guess while I had taken on more commissions, I noticed that my personal creative work was starting to dwindle. And when I looked at my old like creative work, I like something didn't quite feel right. I think I was wondering if something was missing, if like my art was too cute. I tried to tell myself like, oh, we can make like darker art, edgier art or something. And that didn't quite work either. So I just slowly let it dwindle. And okay, so the question of I reached the finish line. Now what? Um, Now what is having imposter syndrome? Um, so at this point, I remembered a piece of advice someone gave me when I left my previous job. She asked me what I would have told myself at the beginning of the last chapter of my life, or like when I began my engineering job. And I said, like when I started engineering, I was really kind of, I had imposter syndrome about not having like a technical degree or like a technical background. And so I wanted to compensate by joining a really kind of technical infrastructure team. And while that was fun, it took me a few years to really find a team that, um, I don't know, that I guess like meshed well with, or like felt like this was like the type of work I wanted to be doing. And after I said that, she looked at me and said, okay, tell yourself that now, because we're humans and we tend to repeat the patterns that we've done in the past. Um, and then I realized that's exactly what I was doing. I was trying to compensate for something that I felt like I lacked, which I guess was like darkness of my art. And I was ignoring kind of like the thing that made me me and my own strengths, which is cute art. So um, I continue to make some cute art. Oh boy. Okay, well, I don't have access to this video, but it'll be here later. Whoops. Um, yeah, it's a little playground. The cat and a bird. Imagine it. So, on to the next slide. I started making these cute videos, and I wondered about something my friends were telling me about in those Instagram messages in my inbox about NFTs. But at the time, I had really thought that these were all large generative projects. I didn't really see how my art style would fit into this. It seemed like people were buying into these for like the hype or like some utility, and I was like, oh, I just make art that I love to make. Thankfully for me, there is a place in the NFT world for this called like One of One Art, and I'll talk about these pieces soon, but kind of more on my backstory and thinking about understanding the space. So, while there was a space for one of one art, I still had a few concerns I wanted to answer. One of which is the environmental impact, which I had heard a bit about, like the energy use of a small country being an equivalent to a few transactions on crypto, on blockchains. I heard about um, like spammy culture, about kind of scams and harassment. Um, and lastly, this is funny. This is kind of a question that my mom asked me when I had sold my first piece. She was like, "Rachel, I'm so excited for you, but I also have to ask why are people buying kind of pixels, JPEGs, things that you can view online. So, what changed my mind about this was one, realizing that there are environmentally friendly alternatives, um, and two, running into someone who stands impacted me. She said that she saw this technology as like unlocking something that hasn't something that um, hasn't been possible for digital artists and animators, especially to um, I guess like to support sorry a method for them to support themselves. And she wanted to create space in the culture that she wanted to be in and kind of change it from within the space, and I felt motivated to join her in that. And lastly, on the question of why buy pixels? To support artists, to um, show your support and their growth and their journey, similar to, I guess, just buying a piece of art from a traditional, like in the world today. Cool. So back to what I actually do. I like to walk through some of my pieces and maybe the process behind them. This piece is quite special in its backstory. So, right after the news about Ukraine broke out, a few artists on our forum function, which is the marketplace I use, of Discord started talking about wanting to donate or create auctions for Ukrainian aid. And we chatted with the team, and over the weekend, the idea for auctions for aid came about. So for a week, the marketplace would donate 100% of their transaction fees, and artists could just list pieces and donate a percentage that they were comfortable with. So I created this piece. I wanted to make something simple and peaceful, and I pledged to donate 100% of the proceeds. Something that touched me was that the person who bought this ended up reselling it and pledging to donate their proceeds from this, in a sense, kind of like multiplying this impact, which for me was like a really nice touching stone for just like the kindness that there is in this community. Um, I wish I made a better transition for this, but the next process that I like to talk about is the series that I'm making called Catbirb. So here we go. Here's the video that didn't load before. Um, I choose a color each month and try to make a few pieces in that color. And this is the first piece on the playground after I had kind of told myself to just make something, make QR lean into my strengths. November was orange. December was purple, kind of representing the end of the year, um, goofing off in the snow. January was red. Kind of wanted to bring in the new year with a bang and get ready for Lunar New Year, which happened on February 1st. And then February was blue, one of my favorite colors. I think I wanted um, something calming. So after I decide the color of the month, um, I'll either um, go out in the world and try to find a place that is that color, kind of like the aquarium. I took my journal there and I kind of like took myself on an artist date and just kind of took in the sights. Or I'll think about, oh, what has happened recently or in the past that is in that color scheme, like this housemate pool adventure, which later inspired a piece. I will then create a really messy sketch. I have not touched these up. This is just true Catbirb sketch. It's like when celebrities post pictures without makeup or something. Yeah. And then I will start off with 3D modeling. What's really important to me at this point is kind of basic shapes and getting the lighting and camera angle down. Um, I feel like once the lighting's in a place where I'm happy, like the rest of the picture or like kind of the rest of the process flows so much more smoothly. And then comes, all the fun of adding motion. Um, In this case, I wanted to learn about, well, I call this animation or this little clip, when you forget everything that you've learned in physics class. And I wanted to learn a bit about the physics simulation in Blender. And, you know, it was pretty fun. Awesome. So finally, you get to see the end result, which is a little room, like a little world that we get to whoop, that cat and bird get to be in. I'll render the frames and then put it together um, in this finished product. Sometimes I'll add some sound, and sometimes I won't. Oops, I'm fast forwarding through this video. Ah! Okay, cool. So now comes the fun part of sharing with the world. Um, Honestly, sharing online, I know it sounds daunting, but it has been such a really cool part of being part of like an online art community. Um, it definitely is a bit of a process to find the format and place that works best for you. There's Instagram and Behance and Twitter and TikTok, but just try things out. And one thing I remember that I have to remember when I share online is that your favorite piece is not always going to be the most difficult piece, and that's not going to be the most popular piece. And that's all okay. I think once again, remembering to just keep putting in the work and remembering what makes a piece valuable for you. And the last note, pass it forward, share other people's art, like find artists that you like. I think that's been one of the great, or like it's are inspired by. I think that's one of been like the that's been one of the most fun parts of kind of like sharing art online. All right, so thanks for sticking with me. Um, I think if I had to summarize a few bits of parting advice, first, I'd say it's okay not knowing which medium is yours. Just keep trying different things. You never know when things will come together, when something might help you later. Just have fun with it. Next point, keep practicing. It's normal to have that gap between your taste and your work, just something we can work through. And lastly, I'd say lean into your strengths. They make you you. And that is it. Yay! I hope all of your plants and gardens thrive. When in doubt, add moths. Um, yeah. Like oh my gosh, what are words? Thanks for sticking with me. I hope you enjoyed this talk, and bye.